That way it takes all the liability off of you guys, takes it off the city. I think it'll be the best thing to do.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Tell the doctor.
Put me in handcuffs. What's
Turn around, put your hands behind your back.
What have I done?
Put down the damn phone. You're calling 911. We're standing right in front of you.
But I'm asking you to leave my residency.
I'm not leaving your place now. Cuffs wouldn't be on you if you weren't acting the way you are.
Whatever. Acting by exercising my constitutional
Okay, have a seat. The worst thing you could do is make a 911 call right in front of us. Actually, what you did was against the law.
It's not against the law.
How much time do you have on?
20.
I have 34. So the smartest thing's going to be put him on a gurney, handcuff him to the rails, take him to the hospital, tell the doctor that he's complaining that he's got previous back injuries and he fell in comfortable position and you need to clear him. That way it takes all the liability off of you guys, takes it off the city. I think it'll be the best thing to do.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
So
we're on the same
what
page.
information?
This case stems from a harrowing 2019 incident in which veteran advocate Slade Douglas was falsely arrested, sexually abused, tortured, and forcibly hospitalized by LAPD officers Jeremy R. Wheeler and Jeffrey H. Yabana. In October 2023, United States District Judge Honorable Maame Iwusi Mensah Frimpong rejected an appeal from LAPD lawyers to dismiss the case, ruling that officers Jeremy Wheeler and Jeffrey Yabana are not entitled to qualified immunity for unconstitutional detention, excessive force, retaliation, violation of due process, violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act, violation of the Bain Act, battery, false arrest, false imprisonment, and negligence. The judge also held that the city of Los Angeles is vicariously liable for the officers' actions.
Well, this is a hell of a story. $6.8 million awarded to the victim. We have Mr. Slade Douglas on the program, Army veteran and advocate. And we also have Thomas Lucas, senior administrator with Equal Justice Network. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining me on Indisputable. Wish it was under better circumstances. All right. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Douglas. Obviously, you had the police called on you. And when the police chose not to leave, even though they were there for something completely non-enforceable, you decided to call 911 on them. And then it seems as if they engaged in a systemic protocol of cover-up and also abuse against you. So tell us why 911 was called on you first and what happened after that in your own words.
The 911 call was actually a squatting incident initiated from the VA as it related to my advocacy for veterans. So when they actually arrived again at my location, I was surprised in the first place that they were even there. Then when they entered by deception. So when they refused to leave, I exercised the constitutional right by calling 911. And for that, I was prosecuted for that.
When you say they entered by deception, I think that's an important note. To my understanding, their guise was, well, this is a welfare check. Am I correct?
No, sir.
What did they say they entered for?
They asked me, could they come in and talk to me because they had received a call from the VA. They never indicated anything about a welfare check because had they done that, I would not have allowed them. So they said that after the fact, the welfare check narrative came after the fact of all this happening. Yes, sir. It was an after the fact justification to cover up police misconduct and further slander my character.
What did they say inside of your domicile that led you to know they were not there for a good faith reason?
When they immediately started trying to search my residence without a warrant and I had not committed a crime. And when I asked them to leave and they refused to leave, I knew at that point in time that they had bad intentions.
Is there some kind of special relationship that was exposed between, let's say, the person at the VA who made this, one is unenforceable, obviously, but who made this call and the cops who decided to carry out this unenforceable act?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. So they were inside of your domicile, your home. You told them, okay, I'm now telling you to leave, which you have the right to do. Yeah, you had the right to invite them in. You have the right to tell them to go. They decide not to leave, and you decide to call 911, which based on the video evidence says that's what really made them upset. It wasn't anything you had actually done. It was you exercising your right. So tell us about the 911 call and what happened afterwards.
Well, when I was dialing 911, obviously I was threatened to put the phone down. Obviously, he used colorful language as well. So when I didn't put the phone down, that's when it was snatched from my hand, which is battery. And then obviously I was unlawfully arrested, which I feel was a form of entrapment as well. Because as you're aware, Dr. Richey, if you don't comply with that, even if it is unlawful, now you're going to be charged with resisting arrest. So obviously I knew to comply.
Yeah. So they start to effect the arrest. You're in handcuffs. We see you in a police cruiser. An ambulance comes. We hear police and first responders talking to each other as if they know what play to play. Okay.
Yes.
Tell us about that conversation and what happened when you got to that hospital.
That conversation was obviously horrifying.
Yeah.
And it also let me know, as you mentioned on your earlier segment, how that's a playbook that they always use because they was very comfortable doing it.
Yeah.
And they did this against my will. So it was essentially kidnapping under the color of law. So when they took me to the hospital, obviously I refused treatment. The judge in this case as well, who's a tremendous judge, even ruled as a fact that I was treated at the hospital without my consent. And without consent, every act that follows is a crime. So the police told the medical staff that they needed to find something in my system to justify the arrest.
That was why you had the extreme toxicology examinations, which were extremely intrusive.
Yes, sir.
And obviously you had no need for them because number one, you have denied medical access to your body.
Okay? Yes, sir.
Give us as much detail as you can. What happened to you? What did you experience while on that hospital bed? And what did these nurses and I assume you spoke to a medical doctor, maybe at some point, perhaps not. But tell us that experience.
Yeah, well, I was double handcuffed to the gurney. I was injected a total of 9 times.
Wow.
They never told me what they were injecting into my body. I was in and out of conscious. And then they placed me in what I consider to be a torture chamber. I was eagle spread, leather restraints on all of my limbs. And that's apparently when the forced catheter actually took place, which again, under California Penal Code 289, that's sexual assault with an instrument. And they did that obviously to get urine from me to test that as well.
At any point, because here's the thing, brother, myself and others are thinking, you got to have some good-hearted people at that hospital. Like somebody at the hospital has to say, what are we doing to this man? Why are we doing this to him? What requirement do we have to do this to him? At any point, did anyone question any of this activity being done to you?
Absolutely not. And during this time when I was unconscious, I was protesting. I was asking for a supervisor. I was asking for a patient advocacy and so forth and so on. But it was like I had no rights, which they were bound to respect.
Let me go back to the genesis of this. You are an advocate for veterans and veteran rights.
Yes, sir.
Your advocacy is what led, according to what you understand happened, your advocacy is what led to this initial 911 call. Can you give us an understanding of your advocacy for veterans?
Yeah, well, I advocate for veterans primarily with the fraud, waste, and abuse, the homeless population in Los Angeles. It's a cesspool, to put it in layman terms. And there's a lot of bridge programs that they actually have as well, where they're actually pretending to be providing services for veterans. But at that point in time, when they when they don't follow through with it, they always label the veteran as being difficult or the veteran having PTSD. So there's no enforcement mechanism in place to ensure that the taxpayers' money are being utilized for what they claim is being utilized for.
Here you are a veteran yourself. You are an advocate for veteran rights. You do your job, you advocate, and you get the police called on you. They're coming knowing it's a non-enforceable 911 call. Like, there is no crime here in order for them to enforce. It is a civil dispute at best, a disagreement. In fact, they don't enforce those. So they come anyway under a false pretense. You then get arrested. There's a cover up on camera about what they're going to do to you in order to eliminate or limit liability for the city and for the police. You go through this ordeal. You end up being abused in multiple manners, not just physically, but also sexually. You get abused. After that abuse, what happens, brother? When you're released finally, what do you do?
Well, obviously it took some time to recover and just put the pieces together, because you wouldn't expect the government to actually do this to you based upon your advocacy. But America has a history of doing these things to a lot of leaders, such as Martin Luther King Jr. and so forth and so on. But it took me a while. I was isolated for a few days, and then finally I had to go ahead and start that healing process. Even though the person that I was that day, I'll never be that person again. That person is gone.
I say this because one of the most difficult things for an advocate to do is advocate for themselves. It is hard for us to wrap our heads around advocating for ourselves because we have dedicated our lives to advocate for the people. At what point did you realize I'm going to have to advocate for me now?
When I realized that people didn't really want to tell the truth about what happened to me. They wanted to use labels like welfare check or 5150, which is very slanderous to me. So the city's defense was a malicious prosecution. They literally saying I'm mentally ill and dangerous because I exercise the constitutional right.
Wow. You were and are justified. The federal jury awarded you $6.8 million in damages to Mr. Slade Douglas, U.S. Army veteran, following the lawsuit of what happened back on that, I would imagine to be pivotal day in 2019. I got wind of this by a remarkable advocate himself, Mr. Neil Foote, who provided context and commentary as well as a press release. What I want to do is speak with Mr. Thomas Lucas, who's the senior administrator with the Equal Justice Network. And the chairman of this outfit is none other than our dear brother, Benjamin Crump. You all provided advisory elements to Mr. Douglas during this process. Tell us about that.
It was a struggle. It was difficult to, first and foremost, Slade Douglas, before we got in touch with him, we came across his case via social media and we were just like, wow. And it was by way of the documentary that he put together and produced himself that we just watched. And so while he was already advocating for himself and we reached out, we realized that, he needs some help. And so we stood in moral support with all the muscle we could behind him. And, we spent, I believe, a year and a half up until his court date, trial date, preparing and making sure that he was in the right mental space. But this guy, we just really love him and appreciate him for being the superhero that he is. Because the average person that this happens to, and it does happen a lot, they, one, don't have the funds to hire an attorney, and two, they don't have the fight to do what he did in the aftermath.
Wow. It's amazing that the advocacy that you all provided to advise him in the process, and obviously the fight that Mr. Douglas has in him naturally, had to all be maximized in order for this judgment to be finalized in his favor. Give us some background, Mr. Douglas, as to why you decided that making a documentary would be a good idea in order to not only tell your side of the story, but to document factual evidence that you had at your disposal.
Yeah, well, lots of times in these cases, victim voices are silenced. And people have a hard time telling the truth. That's one of the things I admire about you. There's a lot of things I admire about you, but you speak truth to power, no matter what. And I respect that. And the Bible states that the righteousness should be bold as a lion. So for me, it's important to follow in the footsteps of you and so many others as it relates to systemic change, because I know these aren't isolated incidents. So I know I'm not the only person that this actually happened to.
See, that's a powerful thing. That part of realizing that if you're experiencing it or if you see it, it likely is not the first time or the only time that it's happening. And you become a proxy advocate and a proxy leader to those that it has already happened to, and for those that it would happen to if you don't stop it today. And you become that person to all of those individuals, past, present, and future. Even if they never meet you or if they never know who you are, you change something in their lives in a significant way. So iron sharpens iron, brother. So as you provide your context, I'm telling you my context. You are my hero. I'm thankful for people like you who you just got caught up in a situation, but you responded in a way to where all of those corrupt individuals, they would think twice about ever being like that again to another human being. And hopefully they're not in those same positions. Do you know any of the fallout that may have happened? Did anybody get suspended? Did anybody get fired? Did anybody get charged?
Absolutely not. And in fact, the arresting officer will be returned at the end of this month.
Damn shame. Damn shame. To Mr. Lucas, for your organization, for those who may not be familiar with what you do, can you give us a background?
Absolutely. We're Equal Justice Now. We fight for the rights of all people. Our initiatives go along the lines of ending systemic racism, bail reform, mental health, and that's just to name a few. And, the mental health aspect, which was, a huge aspect in Mr. Douglas's case, and trying to slander his image and paint him as an individual that, was unbalanced when it was the complete opposite. And we can see that on video. And then also the systemic aspect of his case. This happens a lot, predominantly to Black, brown, and Hispanic individuals here in America. But for the people viewing, it's extremely important to our organization and Mr. Douglas that you all understand that this could happen to anyone. This was literally a kidnapping. It wasn't under the guise of a welfare check. And this could happen to anyone. And I think in 2026, with all that's going on in our country, I think the average citizen has a little bit more of an understanding on that idea of what it looks like to be kidnapped.
Wow. Well said. Mr. Douglas, you now have this $6.8 million settlement, or actually verdict, in your favor. Okay. What do you plan to do? What are your next moves?
Oh, it's going to be continue to advocate such as yourself, even though I'm not on your level, because you're one of my heroes.
Oh, man, we iron sharpens iron. We the same, brother. But thank you.
So I'm going to continue doing that. And one of the things that I'm looking at implementing as well is that police officers, when they are denied qualified immunity, the taxpayers should not have to pay for their legal fees. So for an example, the jury verdict was $6.8 million, but that does not include the legal fees that was put behind this malicious prosecution. And then also in these cases, as you're aware, the prevailing party also received fees under Section 83 or 1988. So that's another approximately million, et cetera. So we're talking about technically the verdict with the attorney fees is probably somewhere like 9 million, and the taxpayers are unaware of that. So we need to eliminate being on the hook for their legal fees when a judge has said, no, you acted against the Constitution and you're denied qualified immunity. We shouldn't be on the hook for their legal fees.
Yeah, you are. I echo your sentiment, and you're 100% correct. And for those who are trying to understand the nuance of what Mr. Douglas is saying, he's saying if a person is operating in their capacity as law enforcement, however, they are operating adverse to the Constitution, adverse to their actual capacity as an officer, judge has determined they do not get qualified immunity. Their immunity is no longer qualified. So because their immunity is no longer qualified, you would imagine that they would have to foot their own legal bill to defend themselves rather than having a taxpayer dollars defend them, which I completely agree with. It makes too much sense. And it should be something at the forefront of elected officials and others as we continue. Dear brother, thank you for all that you do. For those who are watching and they are getting involved in advocacy, they see what's going on around them. They're thinking about transforming into an advocate more full-time. What would you say to them?
Hey, just make sure that everything you do, you need to act as if, what if it come before a judge? Because your protected activity, it will be used against you in a negative light. You know, a national treasure, for an example, is being accused of having a fake degree. Someone who uplifts society.
Very well said, dear brother. Very well said. Which I have to lawyer up and sue them and all kind of craziness. But thank you for being a true advocate, man. Thank you for all you do, brother.
Thank you.
All right. And we'll make sure we have you all back to give us some updates to your advocacy for veterans, which we care deeply about as well.